Hi. Today I'd like to talk about how I met and got into a relationship with my wife. Because a lot of people have been very curious about that in the past, both in Indonesia and the US. So it's, the romantic story of how we got started. So get ready to say ooh and ah. And I'd also like to talk about the challenges that we faced in our relationship, both before and after she was diagnosed with cancer and died. So in 2001, I was working at this DSL company. DSL, if you don't know, is a type of internet connection that goes through copper wires owned by the telephone company. It's a digital connection instead of a typical analog connection, which would be like if you talk on the telephone using copper wires, it's an analog connection normally, unless you're on DSL. Or sorry, not DSL, but if you're actually talking through the internet, then it's analog to DSL and then DSL to analog. Um, if you have fiber optics, then it would be DSL. Um, anyways, uh, so I had a friend in Indonesia who I'd met online, and she had an IT company that she'd started, and while I was working at this DSL company, which was called Rhythms, it was the third largest privately owned DSL provider in America. Um, because of the 2000.com crash of the stock in the stock market, investors pulled out of a lot of internet companies, including perfectly solid ones like uh, Rhythms and Covad and other DSL providers, which was kind of dumb, but people have a knee-jerk reaction, and they didn't look at the difference between a real company like a DSL provider and companies that were providing something that was insubstantial or not proven. So a lot of companies that didn't deserve to suffer went under, and our Rhythms was one of them. During this process, every 3 months or so, they would lay off a huge number of employees. I survived every layoff. But halfway through, well, maybe not even halfway through, I told my friend in Indonesia that this was happening. And she said, well, why don't you come and work for me here in Indonesia in my IT company and be a manager? And I was like, well, okay. I didn't answer okay immediately. I thought about it first. And I'd always been fascinated with Asia. And I thought, well, I'd be stupid to turn down this opportunity. It's a great chance for me to learn new things and learn about other cultures and religions and languages and experience life somewhere else. I guess, when you want, I grew up on kung fu movies and David Carradine in the TV show Kung Fu. And so I had this kind of idealized understanding of the harmony culture that's in much of Asia, and the wisdom that was often imparted in these movies and the TV shows, and so I thought, ooh, this is going to be really interesting, and it was very very interesting. Anyways, I got there. I had been introduced by the woman who offered me the job to a woman who didn't work out. The job evaporated before I even started. But eventually, when I was looking at the situation after, I don't know, maybe the first week or two after I moved to Indonesia, and I realized that there were a lot of Indonesians involved in IT, and that the cost of hiring a foreigner to do IT was significantly higher because, for example, there was $100 a month foreigner tax. There was the cost of getting the permission to request a visa and then send the foreigner to an embassy in another country to get the visa and then come back and get the work order and report to the police and report to all these other departments. And it's a lot of money. I mean, for Indonesian companies, a lot of them, the smaller ones, they can't really afford it. And I just felt like between all the competition and the fact that they could hire probably, For the salary that I would want, they could probably hire many, many more Indonesians than they could hire just me. So I've decided instead to go into English education. Now, I didn't have a certificate, I didn't have a degree in education. I only have an associate's degree in computer science, specifically programming and systems analysis. But I thought, hey, I'm a native speaker, which is what they call people who are speaking their native language, their mother tongue. And I'm pretty good at it. So let's give this a shot. When I had been in America, I'd done some training and stuff, and I really enjoyed doing it. So I went and applied at this company called English First, which is an international franchise. It was in the area of Jakarta called Kalimalang, and I was hired by their director, Ian, and they were happy with me. I seemed to connect well with the students. They seemed to enjoy my classes. I had a lot to learn. I made mistakes and stuff, but I seemed to do okay. And one day the director came to me and he said, hey, Anna, who was a British teacher, a real teacher, Anna's sick. She's got the flu or something. Can you cover a class of hers today? And I said, sure. So I went in there and taught the class, and then the next day he came back to me again and he said, hey, she's still sick. Can you take care of her class again? I said, yeah, no problem. So that day I went in, and there was a student who hadn't been there the day before, and she was, I'll be honest, there were several women in my classes that I thought were very attractive, some of them extremely so. But I didn't flirt with them. I didn't attempt to respond if they flirted with me. I just behaved professionally because I didn't feel it was appropriate to get involved with my own students. Not that it wasn't tempting, but I didn't feel it was a wise thing to do. So I ignored them. That was hard sometimes, but I ignored them. For example, one time I had a 17-year-old join a class of mine at the beginning of the term, I guess you could say, and she raised her hand and introduced herself and said that I was sexy. And I was like, right in front of everybody. And she did that one more time, and I didn't respond the way she expected, I guess, because she disappeared from class. There are, in Indonesia, women who are explicitly going to English classes looking for foreigners that they can marry so they can get status or money or a green card or whatever. And I'm sure it happens in lots of countries where there's a great disparity between the salary of foreigners and the salary of locals. My salary wasn't that big, but it was big compared to locals. My salary was poor by American standards, but by Indonesian standards, I was very wealthy. Anyways, in this class that I covered for Anna, there was this lady, and she was a very attractive lady, and she was sexy. And she would laugh at my jokes. I don't think she actually understood. I think she was laughing because she was being polite, which is something that Indonesians do a lot, because our sense of humor is fairly different from theirs. But I liked the fact that she was laughing at my jokes and that she was smiling at me and that she was pretty and she was sexy and she wasn't my student. And I never taught her again after that day. And a few days later, I saw her, and Anna was back, and she was giving Anna a little package of rum balls that she had made. And I was like, "Ooh, I like rum balls. Could I have some?" And she said, "Yeah, I'll make you some too." And so I was like, "Wow, great!" And she did. She actually made rum balls for me, which made my girlfriend at the time jealous. Well, just to be clear, the relationship between my girlfriend and I was very rocky. She had a lot of issues, and I had a lot of issues, and we just did not match. And I started dating her, and when I arrived, that was November of 2001. By January, I had tried to break up with her, and she had grabbed a knife and threatened to kill herself. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to break up with you. And in February, I tried again, and she again refused. But I met this lady who was Ita, my wife, in January, and by February, I was pretty sure that the relationship with my ex-girlfriend, whose name was Maya, was not going to be successful, and but I was praying. I decided, okay, I'm going to pray and see if I can get an answer from the Creator as to whether I was destined to be with Maya or not. So eventually, Ita and I started dating, and I got a response from God, I think. Maybe not. Maybe it was just me. But basically, I was teaching a class on a Saturday, and the unit we were working on was about love. And while we were discussing it, I came to the realization, hey, we're not meant to be together. It's not going to work out, for sure. At this point, I'd already tried to break up with Maya twice, and she threatened suicide. So I ended up getting a job not too long after that at a different place called Fasih Berbahasa Inggris, which means fluently speaking English, or abbreviated as FBI. So I can honestly say I worked at FBI. Not the FBI, though. Anyways, after I switched jobs, I moved to the area called Bekasi, which is a suburb east of Jakarta. And after I moved in, I sat down with Maya and I broke up with her again. But this time, I told her I'd been praying to God and God had given me a sign. And instead of pulling a knife out and trying to, threatening to kill herself, she just threw her tea mug against the wall and broke it. And she accepted it, but she said that I wasn't allowed to date anybody else for the next few months, which I did not agree to. So that was that, and I was free to pursue my relationship with Ita, which I did. And but getting back to the story of how we met, it's not complete if I don't tell you the rest of this. Because of the experiences in the U.S., both my shyness with women at the time, as well as how harsh some women in the U.S. can be when they reject a man. And I get it. Sometimes men don't get the message when you reject them, and some women are just very, very blunt, and some women are nasty. But anyways, a lot of it had to do with my fear of rejection too. So I had decided I wanted to date Maya, and so after my classes, I would sit outside in the lobby, I should say, and I would wait for Ita. When she arrived, I would get up and I'd say hello, and I'd say, "How are you?" And she'd respond, which made me happy, but I didn't know what to do then, so I said goodbye. So I did this for about a month. And one day I'd been waiting in the lobby for her, and I followed her and her friend outside, who was also from the same class, and just trying to figure out what to say to her. And she said, "Do you want my phone number?" I was like, yes, I want your phone number. So I got her phone number, and we set up a date at McDonald's because I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything around except for McDonald's. Not that I wanted to go to McDonald's because I don't really like McDonald's. I don't really like fast food very much. But I figured, at least I know it. I know how to get there. So we went to McDonald's and had our first date there and got to know each other. And I discovered that her English was a lot worse than I had expected it to be. Because within the set arrangement of the
call from Cassandra Maintenance.
Easy to communicate, but not otherwise.